that I'm very happy to have you here with Anthony. We will be the two moderators tonight. So I'll briefly introduce myself so that you know who is talking to you. So my name is Gabriel. I'm the chair of the regulatory working group at the Crypto Valley Association, which is the association, of course, you know that because you're all members, that organized this event. In my everyday life, I'm the CEO of Arbitri, a one-stop shop that takes care of advising blockchain projects in the legal domains, technical, marketing, and economics. And I'm very happy to do this event with an awesome team of person who actually were nice enough to accept our invitation to talk and discuss about this gaming thing happening in the crypto universe. But beforehand, I'll just let Anthony introduce himself and kick off for the first presentation.
Yes, so hello everyone, my name is Anthony. I work at Arbitri with Gabriel as a marketing specialist. We have an exceptional panel with an exceptional topic, which is blockchain as a game changer in the gaming industry. So I'm going to start with a quick checkup on the gaming industry. As you might guess, this industry has been expanding in great numbers. It is estimated by Newzoo that the gaming market worldwide will have a volume of approximately $220 billion and 3 billion players by 2023. According to Newzoo's research, the sales of esports games during the COVID-19 period increased by 63%. The study also found that US gamers spend an average of 12 hours per week on video games. So this is definitely a very booming market with a lot of opportunities. If you are attending this event tonight, chances are you are very interested in blockchain technology, and you might be thinking, well, blockchain, gaming, what can we do with these two? Tonight, we will try to answer all your questions and present some of the best blockchain gaming projects. We will have Sarah Mckenna, CEO and co-founder of Alien Worlds, Eric de Moura, CEO and founder of Cartesi, Marketa Corteova, COO of Everdreamsoft, Gökhan Altinok, CEO of Dex Games, and we also have a gaming law checkup with Andreas Glarner, partner at MME Legal Tax and Compliance. For the first presentation, we have Marketa Corteova. She is the CEO of Everdreamsoft. Spells of Genesis, a game developed by Everdreamsoft and available on the App Store, is the first ever blockchain trading card game made. When the FD card, a rare trading card of Spells of Genesis, was released, it became the first ever tokenized gaming asset. So Marketa can correct me, but basically you guys were doing NFTs before they were called NFTs.
Yes, definitely. The word NFT didn't even exist when we released our first tokens, and yeah, I will talk a bit about this.
Great.
But it didn't exist. The whole concept is newer than our history, I would say. Yeah.
Well, that's great. There you go. The floor is yours. Game on.
Thank you. Thanks for the introduction. Thanks for having me, guys. I'm very happy to be here. So I would like to talk you a bit about Everdreamsoft, about our company, about what we have done, share our experience, and more specifically talk about some topics or crucial events or issues we have encountered. And you will see that some issues we've been encountering several years ago are still in a bit different way, are still there and are even bigger as the market is growing. So as you mentioned, we released what is considered as the first NFT, or if you want, pre-NFT, which is the FD card. This is this asset. You can see. I hope you can see my screen. So it was released in March 2015, knowing that, for example, Ethereum mainnet was released in summer 2015. So logically, we couldn't release those assets on Ethereum. We minted them on Counterparty, which is an extra layer on Bitcoin blockchain. So basically, technically speaking, it's not really NFT. It is not unique, but we were releasing limited editions of these tokenized assets. So here, the first one, the healing formula, was created in collaboration with Folding Coin, which is a project of Stanford University using the computational power for some simulations in medical research. So a lot of our first cards, because these, even though they were released in 2015, became playing cards in our game Spells of Genesis, which was released in 2017. So people were basically buying these assets, these NFTs, without knowing what it was exactly before it has its utility. So it's quite crazy. When I said it's not completely an NFT, technically, yeah, also we don't really like the word NFT much, but I use it a lot because it's a commonly understood. We better use the expression tokenized assets, because we think that it is what is more important. Basically, what do you really have when you have an NFT? You bought an NFT, and so what is it? It's a part of blockchain information, the token, and something which is most often off-chain, which is the illustration, the thing you are interested in. So the relation between the token and the asset is also a question we are exploring a lot. And if you think about the fact that about 80% of all items minted on OpenSea, according to the recent report, are scam, it's like crazy. I think it's really important to realize what are you really buying when you are buying an NFT, and what do you really own when you own an NFT. And so this is a bit funny for us, because we are talking about the fraud with NFTs. And basically the fraud was what was in the beginning of our blockchain adventure. It was our first game, Munga, which was a classical trading card game. And so there were in-game cards and in-game currencies, and people were able to exchange the in-game card for in-game currency, so no use in the real world. But at some point, we realized that some people were selling their extremely rare cards for a ridiculous amount, really ridiculously small amounts of in-game currencies. Then receiving real money aside, and then they were coming to us saying, oh yeah, I was hacked, you see, I wouldn't have sold this card for such a small amount, so I was hacked, I want you to revert the transaction, and this kind of stuff. So basically they were trying to scam us and their fellow players. So when we realized this, it was also in the beginning of the blockchain technology, we realized that this could be a solution to this problem, because while putting the collectible cards on the blockchain, where players get the true ownership of the cards, and they were legally and technically able to exchange them outside the game, and so get some money. So yeah, actually, technically, it was also one of the first games, play to win, which is also one of the big trends nowadays. So when you think about NFTs, you see that the same way as for classical digital items or even physical items, different NFTs have different value. But the question is, what really defines the value of an NFT? Of course, there are several aspects. I think that's, of course, it's the who created it and what time. It's about the illustration, about the artwork. It is also about its utility. Is it just a collectible, or can I use it, for example, in a game, or does it unlock some other features in a metaverse or something like this? But there is one more sphere I'd like to talk about, because the last summer there was a huge increase of interest in NFTs, and in these vintage NFTs, original NFTs. So basically the free NFTs we created in 2015. And we realized that what gives a big value to some NFTs is also the story behind it. Because especially in the beginning, we created a lot of cards that are basically an allegory of important blockchain projects or events. So for example, here you can see the Colossus of DAO, which we released precisely at the moment when DDAO was hacked. I think I don't need to present the character here. We also have the Fallen Mountain Lord. Probably the image also rings a bell a bit. So it's about the Mt. Gox hack. And finally, we have, of course, the representation of Satoshi. And so this is really something which is important, because while creating these cards, we were representing some historical events, and thus our cards, our NFTs, became part of the history at their turn. And I think this is really, really interesting. I think I'm running out of time. Of course, it's not possible to talk exhaustively about all these topics. So I just wanted to share a bit of our experience, and maybe suggest you a few topics for further reflection or discussion. So
Great.
that's it. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Mckenna. Really good presentation. Thank you, everyone, for joining in on the chat. I see we have people from all over the world, Canada, Turkey, India, Korea. This is great. Thank you for joining in. You can ask questions about the projects in the chat. And if you're lucky and your question is good, we will talk about it during the Q&A or after the presentation. I have a quick question for Mckenna. What do you think makes blockchain a better anti-fraud mechanism?
Well, actually, when we started with blockchain, it was a real answer to an issue we've had. Now it's more about it's trendy, everyone is on the blockchain, so I want to be on the blockchain as well. So I think that it doesn't need to be better, not all the time. Maybe you have some great ideas and your game or project can be great just without the blockchain. And I think this is also an important question you should ask yourself when you're starting a game or something, like, do I really need the blockchain? Does it bring something new or something special? Or do I want to jump on the blockchain just because it's really trendy and everyone is on it? Because that's the thing. In a few weeks, months, years, everyone is going to be on the blockchain. So what is going to make you special?
Okay, great. Thank you for answering.
Without further ado, we will go towards the next presentation. I'm very happy to welcome Andreas Glarner. He's a partner at MME, as we discussed, specialist of blockchain, and I would like to discuss he will present, of course, some aspects with regard to gaming law and entertainment under Swiss and EU jurisdiction. Andrea, you have the floor. The floor is yours. It's probably it's on the legal side, so please.
Yeah, so I hope
it interesting.
I'll just try to share my screen, and I hope you can all see that.
Yes, we can.
Wonderful.
Please.
So yeah, so I have a bit the unfortunate role as mostly in those panels to kind of cover the more boring legal stuff, and I can't, present any fancy pictures of great projects of like the one of Mckenna. So it's a bit not that fortunate. But what I can try to provide is a bit an overview on what on a daily basis we need to deal with as a law firm and advisory firm when it comes to this kind of gamified blockchain related project. And I think it's it's been very, I've been very excited to see in the past year, and I believe 22 is going to be even more the year of bridging blockchain to gaming and gambling. So it's been great to see that development. Maybe some background on myself. I'm heading our MME fintech blockchain team, but I also have roots in the gaming space, especially in the gambling industry, where we represent kind of big chunk of the big operators of the old world, now not blockchain related. And what we see now that this year, I believe those topics are starting to be bridged much more than last year. And so what I kind of put on this slide is where we see what was currently being happening. We have the NFT market on one side, which you're all very familiar with, NFT issuance, the collectibles, the secondary trading venues. We have the metaverse, where those NFTs, we're going to have much more of a role in the future. We have gaming, play to earn services, and the gambling related part. So I kind of distinguish there, gaming being more of the fun games, and the gambling being more of the ones being in the regulated space. And what we see now, that all of these four elements, and I'm sure there are many more, you could add crypto, you can add blockchain, smart contracts into that as well, but it would be a bit an overload of the image, I guess. They start to mingle, and we see cross kind of connections. You connect metaverse and gaming, you connect NFT, metaverse, gambling, and each of those interfaces, new legal problems arise. And those legal issues we face, I tried to summarize that in that slide, just to give you a bit of an overview on what our key concerns are. On one hand, of course, as always, when we look at blockchain, we have AML regulations. So the key questions are AML regulations applicable? What kind of level of decentralization do we have in the projects? Is that level sufficient not to trigger AML regulations in a traditional sense, like the financial intermediation elements? Is it also sufficiently decentralized not to trigger AML regulations in the sense of the new FITF guidelines on DeFi? Which kind of expands the scope of the applicability of AML regulations quite substantially, and which already has been implemented by some of the jurisdictions, including Switzerland. And then, so that's one of the key questions. Of course, then we have some subset of questions like payment services. Is there some kind of a payment peer-to-peer payment service provision in the application? Do we have an art dealer setup where we trade art, which in some jurisdictions also may trigger AML regulations? So those are the AML regulation questions. Then many of the projects, they have some form of a token. That may be a payment token, that may be more kind of a DAO governance token. It really depends on the setup. So that needs to be looked at. We need to check, is it a financial product? So that's another side of legal issues we need to cover. Then we have the gaming regulatory side. Is it a money game? Is it a game of chance? Is it a game of skill if in a money game? And how is it being targeted? We'll get to that in more detail. And some practical considerations we need to take account in. Do we get a banking access with the service provided, and where? Normally gambling and blockchain in combination is not the preferred clients of many banks. So I think that may be a bit of a tricky issue. Then how do we distribute the game? Can we get an app in an app store, or would Apple Store prevent us from being listed there? So a consideration to take into account. And then the VIT tax side of things, which sometimes is a bit a game ruiner, I must say. So basically here on I tried to kind of focus on the more traditional NFT metaverse part without the gambling regulations, without gaming necessarily. Here, again, just to kind of look at what the topics are in that space is more token regulations, token issuance, target jurisdictions of the token, which jurisdictions do we kind of, in which jurisdictions do we trigger regulatory concerns? How do we integrate the token? Is there a secondary market integrated into the platform, or does that take place outside the platform? Those are questions we need to look at on the NFT metaverse side. of course, also the AML regulation side, which I have mentioned before. And whereas on the gaming side and the gambling side, next to the questions we have already addressed on the token and the AML regulation side, quite a strong focus really is on gaming regulations. And there, I think it's important to point out, whereas AML regulations in most jurisdictions are being triggered by in the jurisdictions where you have a domicile and you provide operations out of, if there is an operational entity and the setup is not fully decentralized, gaming regulations and gambling regulations, they really kind of are triggered on a targeting and market basis in most jurisdictions. That's why it's a bit a sensible topic for many companies. And we see a lot of activity now in this play to earn and play for free side of things, where you can participate with NFTs. You have one, you don't even need to purchase one. You can't really lose it necessarily. So projects, for example, like Spitch or Sorare, or could be examples of that. But in many jurisdictions, that still may trigger gambling regulations, because you could potentially purchase an NFT in order to participate in a game. And even if you can't lose it, that could be considered as a stake. And so the question becomes, well, is it a game of skill? Is it a game of chance? Do you have any chance to get it licensed? And again, as I mentioned, the particular challenges arise out of related to banking activities and software distribution. Gambling software or gambling applications are slightly more difficult to get into those app stores than others. So this is basically to give you an overview on what we look at from a legal perspective, and I'm happy to discuss that more in the panel discussion later on.
I believe it's great to have a legal view happening in this panel, and you can see that the law is not an easy game, and a good lawyer is, even in the metaverse, stay down to earth. Thank you a lot, Andrea, for this presentation. We have a small question from Patricio Zavala. What is the best type of legal structure would you recommend for creating a metaverse company, or a company that would lead a metaverse? He gives as an example a foundation or a company. I believe you have created a very famous foundation with
we have created some foundation. Started with the Ethereum Foundation back in a long time. Essentially, I mean, there's no kind of clear-cut answer. I would say a foundation would only serve for that purpose if you really kind of want to hand over the metaverse to kind of the ecosystem and say, well, we're going to build kind of a trusted layer, a base layer infrastructure being the metaverse, and then kind of similar to the logic of an Ethereum foundation with the Ethereum blockchain as a core layer infrastructure, to have a trusted layer there. But in most cases, also the company developing and operating a metaverse can as well be a commercial activity. So I think in most cases, there I would rather opt in for commercial LTD or a similar structure. Okay.
Do you believe, that's a personal question of mine, that we have, so you described the gaming law and the gaming entertainment industry in Switzerland. Do you think we have some kind of an edge from a regulatory point of view? Or would you say that, there is some specific jurisdiction that a project like the one that was mentioned by Patricio, a project that wishes to implement a metaverse or a big gaming and link to a big game linked to the blockchain? Is there like some specific jurisdiction really to look out? And
yeah, I think, let me put it that way. I think, when we look at all the jurisdictions which have a highly developed regulations around gambling are obviously not that suited to really implement a new metaverse or other project which focusing on gambling and shall enable gambling activities. It's quite difficult. I think the regulators already look at that space. If I look at, for example, in Switzerland, we have this blacklisting approach. So basically the gambling authorities, they have the right to blacklist foreign operators and websites from being accessed from Switzerland if they deem them not to be appropriately licensed. And just by way of example, they have, for example, already blacklisted CryptoKitties because they believe CryptoKitties is a regulated game. So it can't be, well, you can circumvent it with a VPN quite easily, but it can't be accessed from Switzerland directly. And that shows
legal advice.
How regulators think. And that applies to most of the European jurisdictions. And so I think some of the more gambling umbrella jurisdictions like Malta or those, so kind of a lot of big operators are, that's certainly something one could look at for a license regime if you prefer to remain outside any license framework in this gray market area. And there's a whole set of jurisdictions, mostly quite warm and cozy, which facilitate that as well.
Thanks a lot for this very complete answer. Let's move to the next presentation. I'm very happy to welcome Mrs. Sarah Mckenna. She's one of the co-founder of Alliance World. Just that. So Alliance World, decentralized metaverse. Alliance World is described as an NFT metaverse. You have tons of utility in the metaverse. You can do a lot of things. I'll really invite you to visit this the website of Alliance World. It's an amazing project, and I'm very happy to hand you over the floor. Are you here?
Thank you, Gabriel. Thank you. Yeah, I'm here. Great to be here. So I'm Sarah Mckenna, co-founder of Alien Worlds. We're the largest metaverse, NFT metaverse by users in a monthly view. So on monthly active users, you can go to dapradar.com and see the user numbers. We built that from a heritage of being a company that was building DAOs. So for many, many years, we've been building and also advising other projects on creating tokenized DAOs. And the sort of foundational idea behind Alien Worlds was the combination of DAOs and NFTs within a single competitive environment, and bringing people together to play with these blockchain constructs and to build value for themselves and for their communities. So we grew over the course of about 18 months to be, in fact, we broke many of those initial thresholds of user numbers ever in history. So we were the first blockchain game to exceed 100,000 users, the first blockchain game to exceed 500,000 users and 1 million users and so on. And now we're in excess of 5 million lifetime users, and every day hundreds of thousands of players. And that's been a really incredible thing to bring people together in that way, to be able to engage in DAOs and also utility NFTs. So the NFTs that we have within the metaverse are all encoded with attributes that allow the gaming smart contracts to read them. And so the reason why people want to acquire NFTs is so that they can use them across the metaverse on the Binance Smart Chain, on the Wax chain. Our token is across Ethereum, Wax, and BSC as well. So we were the first game project to be on 3 blockchains and continuing to look at future chains. I'd like to sort of share an idea with you. So if 2021, I think it's probably fair to say, was the year of NFTs. So Mckenna was speaking about how her project was creating these digital assets even before people knew what the term was. And I think I was also, speaking to people about NFTs, and their eyes would glaze over, and you kind of couldn't necessarily connect with that concept. I think 2022 is going to be the year of the DAO. So And what is a DAO? So a DAO is a tokenized on-chain construct, and it allows groups of people as teams to ascribe ownership of that project to each other. People can either buy or work their way into the DAO, and then to self-govern their activities themselves. So why is that a significant concept when it comes to blockchain gaming? Well, NFTs allowed unique items to be represented on chain. And then this could be used as part of a game environment or a metaverse, right? So in our metaverse, for example, we have a fungible token, Trillium, which governs certain game mechanics and incentivizes players and allows them to express value and stake and reward. We have the NFTs that allow people to use singular items that have their own utility, and they can engage in games through the NFTs that way. DAOs are equally a construct, an on-chain construct that create really unique and powerful use cases. So essentially, they're bringing people together. So they're teams of people. What more of a natural application than gaming to have DAOs actually be gaming components. So DAOs so far in many blockchain projects have been mainly conceived of as ways to govern parts of the project. So the fungible token will feed into a part of the project that is governed by a DAO. When we think of DAOs, we're actually thinking of them as items within the game. So gaming constructs, teams of people interacting, competing, winning. And these are all on chain. Each DAO has its own token, and they can govern their own affairs through programmatic smart contracts that are prescribed, that are autonomous. They can determine what those smart contracts do. So, if we saw that first fungible tokens created a very unique way of gaming, and then NFTs also introduced richness into that and allowed people to both express and construct different game mechanics, so too does the DAO actually add a completely different dimension to how blockchain gaming can be developed and constructed. And it's a natural Web3 progression from Web2. So what you can see here is this kind of what a DAO really is, which is a way of bringing people together. You can see on the right-hand side of this slide, bringing people together in a non-hierarchical way in which the members are able to ascribe ownership and voting power through their ownership of the fungible token. This is very, very powerful. So in kind of a sort of historical economic model in which there were producers and consumers, right? So in one interaction, there would be a producer and somebody else was a consumer. And then if we think of a Web2 model in which there began to be some deviation from just a direct bilateral producer-consumer relationship in which some consumers were kind of elevated to the status of being almost a producer as well. So this is where you saw kind of the rise of influencers and evangelists from a brand who were actually consumers, but were kind of elevated to the status of being part of the brand itself, for example, or part of the entity that was doing the production. If we take that to its to its next evolution in Web3 and on-chain, we have actually a complete commingling of this concept of producer and consumer, right? So there isn't really a strong separation. In the metaverse, sometimes someone's a producer, sometimes they're a consumer. They're able to offer things into the metaverse either as somebody who's buying them or an audience, or as somebody who's producing an NFT, part of the game, interacting with a DAO, and so on. So let's think then about what that makes possible. So we have, people who are producers, consumers, and this is being tracked on chain, but it isn't necessarily as rigidly ascribed as in sort of Web2 models in which it was very clear on any given platform who the producer and who the consumer was. So here in this decentralized metaverse, what we have are the roles switching. Sometimes somebody's a producer, sometimes they're a consumer. A community DAO, for example, how do they reach out to new members in the metaverse? Well, maybe they do a token drop onto people in the metaverse and of their community DAO token. And so that's a way of kind of bringing people into their community, and that can all be done within the metaverse environment of airdropping DAO tokens onto potential community members. DAOs have relationships between each other, right? So one tokenized DAO to another can cooperate, for example, by swapping tokens and becoming co-owners in each other's DAOs. They could compete. So members of one DAO could affect a takeover of another DAO by buying a lot of the token. And this is a reason why it's important for communities to try and add value to their DAOs to make them more expensive to take over. They could collaborate by allowing there to be co-marketing or, events and other collaborative efforts that don't necessarily involve token interactions between the two entities. So here we see that these token flows in relation to DAOs really create many new, essentially flows of value within the metaverse. And you can imagine that these all basically amount to new business models, new ways of people interacting and, sharing value or transacting value between each other. And this, of course, then creates a lot of commercial possibility within the metaverse. And is it, I think when people want to hear stuff from my perspective as the founder of one of the largest metaverses in the world, I think what they're often very interested to hear is, how do I participate in these new economic models? How can I be part of this and at the forefront of it? This is why, being an early adopter of these technologies and getting your foot in the door with the metaverse and beginning to try is extremely advantageous right now, because, these new business models are very much being developed within the metaverse.
Thanks a lot, Sarah. That there's a lot of details. It's a lot of content, and I really like your slide. I was wondering maybe if maybe we can share it afterwards with the public. I believe you bring like some awesome content. I have maybe a question for you. I hope next year will be, or this year will be actually the year of the DAO. How do you organize the DAO? What's the governance model? And if I want to create a DAO, we're a nice group of people right now as panelists, what would be the use or actually in the real world of those DAO? It's a lot of questions.
Sure.
Yeah. So governance, what's the magic recipe?
Well, so it's helpful, obviously, there's a bit of smart contract coding that goes into it. And one of our priorities within Alien Worlds is to be creating a platform that will allow that to be extremely easy for people to come in and create a DAO. But essentially, a DAO is just a token and a series of smart contracts that are governing the accounts of the DAO. So the DAO generates the token. It has blockchain accounts, and those accounts are governed by multi-signatory permissions that can either be released through direct voting of the token holders. So that would be like a sort of direct democracy model, or by custodians who are delegated by the token holders. So this is like an indirect democracy model where token holders vote for representatives, and then those representatives vote on how to transact out of the DAO's account. That's the type of DAO that we actually build, because we think that it fosters better decision making in most cases, although sometimes it can be good to have a veto in place where the token holders can veto the actions of the custodians. But in general, token holders are not normally sort of vigilant enough or engaged enough to actually be voting on every single proposal, and it's normally better to have an intermediate layer. So that's what a DAO is. It's a blockchain account, a token, that token having been distributed to people either because they're working and creating value within the DAO or because they buy it. And when they buy the token, they're actually securing the value of the DAO. So there is also a real utility that goes into buying the token, because you're helping to make it more expensive to take over. So you're helping to secure this on-chain entity. And then there is a series of parameters around electing the governors and the types of voting thresholds that the governors have to clear in order to release tokens out of the DAO, or in order to do other things like changing the code of the DAO. And why would you want to do it? Because it creates a really great way to bring people together as a team. And in a non-hierarchical way that doesn't rely on, for example, company law or other, legal constructs that would otherwise govern how people work together. In this case, we're using smart contracts to to predetermine, you know, this is the minimum threshold that must be met before anything can be released from the DAO's account, or this is the minimum threshold that has to be cleared before we will change the smart contracts of the DAO, and so on.
We will have this whole panel discussion. I'm pretty sure Andreas will be super happy to react to the corporate law consideration. But I believe it's just a quick question. It's a yes or no type of question. So do I need a MetaMask account to play your game, to play Aliens World?
You can log in through MetaMask to play the BSC game, the game on the Binance Smart Chain, but otherwise you need a Wax Cloud wallet to play the rest of the game. Okay,
cool. Thanks. I'll let now.
Yes.
I'll let you go on with our two last presentation. So your floor is yours.
Yeah. So next presentation. For the next presentation, we have Eric Demoura, CEO of Cartesi. Eric has more than 20 years of experience in the software industry and founded Cartesi 4 years ago. Cartesi is a second layer solution, the first blockchain operating system. I find this definition on your website very interesting. Cartesi is a second layer system that moves complex computation off-chain while preserving the security guarantees of the blockchain. You have developed a few games such as a decentralized poker games and Crypts, a tower defense game. By the way, I played Creeps and I went to level 70. I thought it was very, very fun. Eric, the floor is yours.
Well done.
I'm very happy to hear there is a Creeps fan here.
Yes, very much.
We all love Creeps at Cartesi as well. And yeah, we developed a couple of games. Creeps was one of them, and Poker was another game we developed last year. In order for us to showcase and to prove to ourselves and to the world what we're producing, right? And it's interesting that the two applications that we chose were games, and I believe that our technology has a lot to contribute to the game industry in this interesting intersection between blockchain and games and NFTs. And I want to delve into that today. There are several value propositions for this intersection between blockchains and games, right? But I'd like to talk more about perhaps the most important one of the most famous value proposition, which is the whole idea that people can own their own in-game assets through NFTs, right? And I think this topic is not so simple. It's a little bit complex and it's worth investigating and going deeper a little bit. So the thing that I see is that there seems to be this disconnect between the value that an NFT of a game asset has and what people perceive, right? Because we all know here that the NFT of a game asset in general doesn't carry the asset itself. It's just a number, just a hash that works as an index, and the meaning of that NFT is given by the game platform itself. And most games run in traditional centralized setups on servers, etc. And the NFT itself doesn't have the images, the animations, the skins, the behavior of your item. So it brings some questions that are well known, but I'd like to bring them again here for the purpose of making my point. That, well, first of all, if the game company that created the NFT and the asset shuts down, what happens to the value of my NFT that I own? If the company goes rogue or something happens, maybe they want to resignify my NFT to something else. Maybe I have a magic sword and then someday I come back and I have a dead frog in my game. And actually the game company would have, in theory, the power to do so because they control the meaning of that NFT in their platform. Or another problem, maybe I own this beautiful magic sword that I think is super scarce, and the game developer just decides to issue 100 more units of that sword, creating inflation and making the value of my sword go down at the same time. So, I mean, the value of these NFTs is questionable when you look closer. I'm not saying that they do have value, and NFTs play lots of other roles in the game industry. They bring interesting business models, financial distribution, lots of good aspects. But when it comes to the real ownership, this real ownership has to be analyzed more deeply. So one thing that I like to say is that, let's imagine there is a very simple game. Let's use some stretch of imagination, but there's a very simple game that's very successful nowadays, which is Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a collaborative game. It has a 1 trillion market cap value. It has simple rules. If you work as a miner, validating blocks, you receive a reward. There is a monetary policy that's defined by the network. Now, Bitcoin wouldn't have the value it has if it has a company deciding on the reward of each miner, a company that could decide arbitrarily on the monetary policy of Bitcoin. It only has the value it has because it's fully decentralized. Right? Now, Bitcoin is a very simple game, and it would be very hard nowadays for us to develop much more complex games using nowadays blockchain infrastructure because of the basically the well-known scalability issues. Right? So Bitcoin has been a very simple game. It's easy to program and to decentralize. But when it comes to more sophisticated stuff, it's almost impossible to develop anything on the blockchain. Part of this, the reason, as I said, is because of scalability limitations in computation, storage, throughput. The other reason is that if you want to develop a game or something on a blockchain, let's say Ethereum or Polygon, you're going to use Solidity. You don't have, as a game developer, a real operating system in which you can use your favorite libraries, components, and software that you use to develop your game server. These things are not available there. So it's very hard for people to develop real decentralized games. And it's due to this technical difficulty we have nowadays that we have this fragility between NFT value as perceived and as it is in reality. Now, since we started Cartesi in 2018, our goal was to bring to blockchains a real operating system, right? So we have been working hard these last 4 years to be able to bring to software developers not an environment restrictive like that enables a language or 2 languages, but actually a full OS that people can use components and libraries and services that have been evolving throughout the last decades. So, but in order to achieve this, we also had to be a scalability solution. We are now developing Cartesi Rollups, which is a rollup solution that gives to our second layer the same security guarantees as other rollup solutions. And the great breakthrough for Cartesi is that we bring a VM that supports a real operating system, Linux. It's very important to show the importance of this, because if you go from the birth of the internet through Web 1, Web 2.0, you have operating systems like Linux behind everything. Our digital life is powered by OSs like Linux. Even Android is a variation of Linux. And when you come to Web 3, there is no OS anymore. And then people have to face very limited programming environments and deal with very low level programming again. So by bringing an OS to the hands of, let's say, game developers, we want to allow people to be to be able to create games that are really decentralized. Because if you can really decentralize your game logic, if you can, let's say you want to do your strategy or RPG game using our tech, then the game will have the same properties that protocols like Bitcoin, Ethereum have. And in that sense, the NFTs, the in-game assets, are not controlled by exclusively by the developer. They are controlled by the community. The community has all the power to fork the game whenever they want. The game will be open source and they can do whatever they like. So my idea here today was to show to you guys this criticism on the real value of NFTs when it comes to ownership. Again, there is value the way it is, but the value could be much bigger if people were able to really decentralize the logic of their games. Nowadays, people are not decentralizing too much the logic because of technological limitation. And that's the thing that we are very excited to bring this year. Actually, we have the first version of Cartesian Rollups running since December. Right now, we are working with several system integrators that are helping to build the first use cases of Cartesian Rollups. We are getting closer to mainnet soon. And among these, there are game development companies working on simple games to show how they can use Cartesian Rollups to decentralize games. So that's it. Thank you. It's very nice to be here with you and hear what each one of you guys have to say about games.
Great. Thank you, Eric. Really good presentation. I really like how Cartesi tries to solve the problematic of how decentralized can you be, and you talked about that. It was really good. I have a question that I think about a lot is how can you make blockchain gaming really accessible? Like, is it really made to scale, or is it more sort of a niche market?
I think decentralized games, they will have to face some limitations. It would be, for instance, very hard for us to decentralize a real-time shooter, but it's okay to decentralize simple RPGs, board games, betting games. We did poker, for instance. So there are a whole universe of game styles that can be decentralized. So, and once you create this opportunity, once this is available, new markets can be created, right? I think it generates lots of new opportunities. So it's hard for me to estimate the size of this market, but I think it can be quite big.
Okay, great. Thank you, Eric. So for the last presentation of this amazing panel, we have Gökhan Altinok, CEO of Dex Games. Gökhan has over 20 years of experience in leading companies in the telecommunication industry and extensive project management and consultant experiences. Dex Games aims to build an all-in-one decentralized gaming platform. It seems you are working hard to change the gaming esports ecosystem and bring all the benefits of blockchain technology to the gaming industry. All right, Gökhan, player ready, set, go.
Thank you. Do you see my screen?
Yes, it's working.
It's working. First of all, I'm very pleased to meet you. Welcome all participants, speakers, and our moderators. You say I'm one of the co-founder of the Dex Game. Many things have already been mentioned. I will try to skip them. Our company Dex Game Labs GmbH has been founded in Switzerland. We are currently in Technopark Zurich, CV Labs Zug, and Trustcurt Zurich, as well as in several offices in Turkey. Dex Game, every component of the game ecosystem in the value chain, blockchain-based sharing economy based on a decentralized financial system. It was designed to bring the personalization and collaboration-based experience economy together with its model and bring it to life on the metaverse platform is built. Dex Game on this metaverse platform called Dex Park players, amateur professional esport teams, game developers, game artists, technology and hardware brands involved in the gaming industry, supplier, gaming equipment, investor, investment organizations, influencer, publisher, aims to create a collective gaming world by bringing them together and increasing the interaction between them. Especially we want to solve the important problems for profiles, for personas. These are gamers, we can now call them player teams, investors, developers, organizations. We have been in the game, DeFi and cryptocurrency ecosystem for years. We are an experienced team in this field. We know what the audience wants, what they expected and current trends. That's why some of the things we focus on are also things that too many people demand. So as solution blockchain technology and spirit with decentralized approach is a unique opportunity to solve these problems, especially for gamers and developers. Or, the solution is tokenize the talent and assets in games and enable investors to invest in these assets. We are not talking about something like NFT. We convert all values, especially talent, into tokens. While doing this, we bring the whole ecosystem together with a well-built DeFi model. Finally, speaking of DexGem token, we have the DexGem token. Here you can see the audience we are targets in the short and medium term, vendors, gamers, platform token investors. First product, Dex versus Tournament Duel Center, actually is not a complicated solution for solving focus problems. It's very simple. With this product, gamers and teams will be able to organize duels and tournaments for popular games, so they will be able to earn money as they play. And they will have a platform where they show their talents. It is a platform that works completely autonomously. It will work first for PC games and then for mobile and console game in the long term. He will also include the game of the developers. If the game published by the developers is enjoyable, both of them, players and developers, will earn money. Our second product is a exchange, customized gamer and team tokens exchange. In this exchange, we will tokenize the game with some value for players. For example, CSGO is a very popular game. Millions of players play it every day. Let's say this game is listed on Dex Versus and players can duel on tournaments. At this point, we will produce the token named Dex CG. In Dex game, we will tokenize the playing time, popularity, and many more metrics of the CSGO game. Investors will be able to evaluate their investments with this token that they purchase with the Dex game token. Even players will be able to invest in tokens with Dex game, which they earn by playing games. In short, anyone can become an investor. On the third product, the Dex Plays, players loaded focus group meetings we had during the product modeling process, online marketplace for gamers and developers. We attach great importance to mobility of the token for this platform. We are building a dynamic platform. We think the best way to this model is supply chain. That's why we have marketplace product for shopping. Gamers, developers can buy equipment, hardware, models, soundtrack, etc. It only works with DexGem token here. Developer can list their game assets and put them for sales. DexGem supplier can also list their goods. In-game NFTs will also be sold here. Nowadays, its popularity is rising NFTs. We want to create a Dex game in DexMR and in Dex Versus. Will work on all platforms in the long run. However, it targets PC games in the short term. That's why we promise competition on all platforms. And will host popular games played online only. Our most important goal is to deliver this product to players all over the world. I have a few pictures here from our Dex Park. Here is the main page from our Dex Park, a view entrance to the Dex Place or Dexchange. Here are the terminals for the deposit and withdrawals. Entrance to the Dex Versus. We built this in a 3D model, like the beginning for a metaverse platform. Here is the Dex Zone with games for tournaments. and games for duels. And so how the duels and tournaments works is an example. Let's take a look in case for 1-to-1 duels. As you can see, players pay a duel fee. This duel fee is fixed and set by Dex Game because we don't want this platform to be like gambling, betting. This fee may change for each game. Players and shares come to duel price pool. The income in the prize pool is shared to a certain extent with everyone in the entire ecosystem, even with the player who lost the game. Players can be duel by inviting each other or randomly. We will classify the players according to some metrics to make it a fair game. Those players of similar levels will be able to play with each other. That's why we build autonomous, decentralized, and easily accessible transfer and fair platform. As I mentioned before, going into details of the exchange, there are 3 types of customized tokens. I talk about them. It says customized game tokens, gamer tokens, and team tokens. I think the many things have already been mentioned. I will try to skip them. Why Switzerland? I think it's also cleared in this time. Yeah, I give the word back to the moderators.
Yes, great. Thank you, Gökhan. Really good presentation. Thank you also for showing us a little bit of how the platform is looking like. This is really good. As a gamer myself, I really appreciate what you guys are trying to do with the gaming ecosystem, because we can definitely use blockchain technology to really change that. One aspect of blockchain gaming that we talked about tonight is the play to earn concept. Can you expand a little bit more of what it is and how we can really change the gaming world as it is today?
I think we have several opportunities with the blockchain technologies, with the whole possibility from decentralizing, with the tokenizing, and also we can use the NFTs. Mckenna say a good word, I think, also with tokenized assets. And we have many opportunities to use this for gaming. The whole thing with a decentralized system, we don't need a central system to develop this whole system. We are independent for many systems. I will also say the whole thing and full decentralized at time is not possible. We're beginning with the possibilities. We have a very good network of protocol like Scales, metaverse developers, and blockchain and game developers. I think the most important thing is to promote good collaborations and interoperability between the platforms. Not build, every platform builds their own code, their own blockchain. For us, is what's important is like the problem we have with the blockchain in the beginning. We have on time with the interoperability, with the exchange like parachains or several chains. The same problem, we don't have this problem with the internet by Tim Berners-Lee, or it's only World Wide Web. It's the same protocol. We have the HTML, all speak the same language. Interoperability is here, and we have the challenge for blockchain and for the metaverse. Find a solution for the whole interoperability with interfaces, with APIs to speak with each other.
Maybe that's a great opportunity that is given now whilst you talk about interoperability to switch into the panel discussion. And I believe that what you say really rings a bell to me to what Eric said about, building a platform on Linux and try to have a language or not to be like focused on one system. Eric, what do you think of what Gökhan just said about building a system based on interoperability, and that interoperability is one of the main challenges with regard to the system you guys are building?
Well, I think interoperability has different dimensions to consider. Well, in a way, we're preparing to have a system that can, if you have a game playing on one, let's say, Cartesian apps, eventually this game can interoperate with other games playing in other Cartesian apps, right? I think it depends on the what you mean by interoperability. So, Gökhan, what's exactly the point you are talking about?
I mean, with the interoperability, you need to transfer goods or values or transaction between several blockchains. Or the same with the metaverse. I built a metaverse. It must be possible. I must have a link to the meta from the Facebook, from the metaverse. It must a possibility with interface, with API, like the Mark Zuckerberg talk about this. They say also when you have NFT or when you have goods, you must own this himself, not the platform. And Zuckerberg say also they will give the people or the programmers APIs to interact with her meta. And I think this is important for all platform developers or from platform builders. We must think a standard like for the bank, we have the SWIFT protocol or SEPA protocol, or for the flights, we have a protocol or we have a system to collaborate, to speak with each other. And then the same we need also for the metaverse and for the blockchains, like also multi-chain, like parachains.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that within the same chain, this kind of interoperability is much more secure and simple to resolve. If you want to do communication between chains, then it's a more complex problem to solve. Of course, there are many kinds of bridges. Some are more centralized, some are less centralized, but it's a hard problem to fix. But it's a matter of time. Technology will evolve, and it will just get better.
Let me maybe discuss also this question of interoperability that is linked also to the standard and to the language that we use. Mckenna, you spoke about about Everdream Soft and about the fact that you used NFT at first to limit and to help people with regard to the risk of fraud. And I was willing to know. So basically, what you guys did, you did NFT as Anthony said at the time that we didn't call them NFTs. So when you created your system, what type of technology did you use? You didn't use like an ERC 721. What did you use?
No, we didn't use this.
From a
we didn't use this protocol because again it didn't exist.
Yeah.
So I maybe I mentioned it. We at the time we used Counterparty, which is a layer on a Bitcoin blockchain, because basically Bitcoin blockchain was the only one that was more or less working. Now it links back to the question of interoperability and such, because currently at Everdream Soft, since several years, we've also been developing tools for games and for collectibles. So we are operating the games, Genesis, but we realized that at some moment we wanted to, for example, integrate a new feature or to do something, and there were no tools for this. So we are in parallel developing tools that we use for our games, our game. So this way we also test somehow our tools. And the goal is to offer those tools also to other game developers, NFT creators, and collectors, artists, and stuff. And we believe that there won't necessarily be one winning protocol or standard, but there will be a multiplicity of different standards, because as let's take a parallel from a real world. I mean, you have national markets. So they are different, they have different rules in each country and stuff. And then you also have an international market. and they all have to cooperate and collaborate in a certain way. So our goal with the multi-chain tools, because our approach is really multi-chain, is to offer tools that it will help user to access their NFTs, their different games and stuff, no matter the blockchain, what the game or the metaverse is using. So we are trying to unify it from the user's point of view, without necessarily unifying the protocol or the technology behind.
Is it something that you're also exploring, Saro, with regard to Alien World? And do you believe in this multi-chain kind of approach? Interoperability
Yes.
is probably a big deal also.
Absolutely. I mean, so we built our own multi-chain interoperability bridges between 3 blockchains, and we're quite industry leading at the time for doing that. And it's certainly something, I agree with Eric that the security considerations are very, very important when building bridges for tokens between chains, and more decentralized methods of bridging tokens are better in that respect. Ours uses a decentralized Oracle system. This is certainly something that the largest metaverse projects are thinking about and talking about, is developing standards that can be used across the space to really make that kind of vision of one metaverse a reality. You know, the metaverse, as it's been kind of conceived in the abstract, is actually one metaverse. So this concept of many metaverses is a bit of an intermediate step, which is a bit suboptimal. So yes, being able to fully bridge tokens and therefore users between the spaces. But to give you a flavor of the types of issues that come up is, so if you've got an NFT that has utility in one game, and then you want to port that perhaps across chain or even, you know, on the same chain to another gaming environment, that NFT might be sort of out of balance with the game as it's been designed for its own NFTs, right? So it might sort of have powers that are too outsized for example, its supply, right? Because in general, more rare NFTs have better powers. So these are the types of things that you have to then create, you know, mapping protocols and so on, so that you can ensure that scarcity and powers and so on map correctly across. And when it comes to tokens, you know, there are some fungible tokens, there are some similar considerations. So it's a technical lift, and it's a bit of a coordination job, but it's well worth doing. As somebody mentioned, sort of integration into Meta. See, this is the type of thing, it's even more important for the blockchain metaverses to get together and properly document and implement interoperability, because otherwise you get the likes of Meta, which isn't a metaverse in the sense of being a peer-to-peer digital space in which users can actually transact with each other as owners of the system. They will probably try and come up with some kind of standard, and, you know, but it won't really actually be mechanically what we're talking about in terms of giving users ownership of the system so that they can transact peer-to-peer with each other.
So standard is a technical law of the system. With regard to the regulatory environment, I'll be speaking to Andreas about that. We spoke about DAOs, about play to earn. Like, what's your take on all those new models from a legal point of view? Does a DAO that invests, you know, in a digital asset, in a metaverse that makes people rich with millions, is regulated by the law? Does the law apply? Like, what is the state of the law with regard to those new use cases happening?
I think there are kind of 2 answers to the question, and both are not very straightforward, I have to admit. One answer is what the law says, and the question is what the law says, and the other question is, what do regulators believe that the law says and interpret into the existing law? So, and those can be, you know, worlds in between. And so maybe starting with the first question, of course, most jurisdictions have laws which are kind of technology neutrally formulated. So they apply independent of the fact and the question what kind of technology is being used. And many of those laws and regulations look at operational activities. And when we start decentralizing operational activities and automating activities, then the question really arises, well, is someone liable from an operation perspective for what is happening in a DAO, in a DEX, in a metaverse? So that's why at the very beginning, and I think some of my colleagues here at today's call, they also pointed that out, it's always a question of decentralization and the level of decentralization. And in a nutshell, the more decentralized a project is and the more decentralized the governance is, the lower the likelihood that we find an operational liability of someone, an operational activity, which you can then tie the laws to and say, well, you're actually doing this, you're doing a money exchange, you're doing a money transmitting, you're creating an investment funds for metaverse, because and so this is the current kind of discussion point. And so what we do, we try to eliminate those centralized trigger points which could trigger this operational and regulatory liability. And there are a couple of them. It starts as user interfaces, it continues over liquidity provisioning, continues over multi-sig control over wallets, and centrally kind of update the possibility to update smart contracts. So there's a whole list of topics we would need to go through. And so this is one thing of the question, of course, and the DAO setup in particular. I think we had a bit earlier the discussion, well, is a DAO, does it help to safeguard a community from regulatory liability? And again, it depends what a DAO is. I mean, some DAOs, and we have seen that in the latest kind of release on Wonderland from the SEC, the term DAO is not really defined. Anything could be a DAO. Some DAOs are very decentralized and really don't have any legal.
It's not a corporation, according to Saro.
Yeah, and others they just use a term, and it's more of a social signaling thing. And so yeah, for us, it really is relevant. If you have no legal wrapper, what kind of liability do you put on the shoulders of the DAO members, and potentially on the token as well? So that a governance token from a fully decentralized DAO could in principle be qualified as security if the token holders can, for example, decide to pay out the treasury to themselves. And if you want to avoid all those risks, you're probably better off in kind of structuring the DAO in a legal wrapper in some form, the different possibilities on that. So kind of
do you think it's better to go? It's just a yes or no question, but you don't have to answer that. But do you think it's better to be like fully decentralized or to have a legal anchor at some point? Because you can decide to be like, to try to be a libertarian and be a flamboyant libertarian and try to be decentralized and try to implement really a model that would fit this definition of libertarian, although I'd never really met someone who could actually define what it was. But what would be your takes with regard to the law and the DAO with regard to, is it useful to have a legal anchor? Like if you create a DAO on Alliance World, is it useful to ask the lawyer about, what they think of it? It's a kind of a tricky question. Sarah, you
never ask a lawyer if it's useful to ask a lawyer. I think the answer is clear. But at the end of the day, I think it's, much like the libertarian approach, it really depends what your aim and your goals are. And if you kind of want to use DAO at the end to get funds out of it to pay your rent and your car and whatever you want to use the money for, then you may consider to implement a structure which is legally solid. Absolutely. If you say, no, we want to create a project out in space and take the libertarian approach and not tangle it to centralized elements at all, which I very much understand, then I think you should go another path.
Thank you for this marvelous answer. Anthony?
Yeah, well, I think the event is slowly coming to an end. If you have maybe one last questions for the public, I can try maybe to ask one. So we have a question from Lucas. can the experience and knowledge in the game industry be also used, transformed to the film entertainment industry, film production, series, film rights, distribution, tokenizations of such rights? Does anyone want to answer this? Maybe. Does anyone have experience in the film industry? I'm not sure. Okay, well, it's fine.
We don't really have experience in this field, but I think that definitely these are other fields after gaming that will be explored by blockchain technology. And speaking of rights, yeah, there are also already now a lot of questions about the NFTs. Actually, can I just tokenize anything I find on the internet, or what are the rights related to this? And actually, it's a huge topic and huge challenge. And we at Untitled are already working on a new exciting project. For the moment, it's pretty
great.
It's not public yet, so yeah, it's really confidential. So unfortunately, I cannot tell more, but I think that is a huge field we are going to explore. And maybe if there is another event in a few months, so we would be able to talk more about this. And yeah, I would really love to talk to you about this new project because it's awesome. But just be patient, and yeah, but I think that music and film industry are definitely the next one.
So answer to Lucas, you have to come back.
Maybe I can add on that. If you look back a couple of years, like 2016, 17, some of the early blockchain ICOs like Singular DTV, for example, and others, they've been all about, matching music film industry with blockchain and distributing kind of the IP holdings and funds. I think, they didn't really succeed yet, will not, but I'm sure that there are other projects in the pipeline that will.
Great. Okay, great. Well, I think this event is slowly coming to an end. Is this game over? Probably. Okay. Does anyone want to add something?
Yeah,
please.
One last thing.
Maybe last sentence. I would also like to warn all new crypto investors. This new world with NFT, metaverse, and all the new buzzwords holds many scams. The best investment is in yourself. To understand the technology better. You have YouTubes, you have videos, you have CV, you have overall many courses, many books, and the best investment. I get always the question: what I shall buy, which crypto, which NFT, which metaverse? And I say the best investation is in yourself investment. Yeah. That's my last.
Okay, great. Yeah, you're totally right. There's a lot of scammers out there. Scammers will always find new opportunities, and metaverse is probably one. Great. So I want to give a special thanks to the public for their questions, for all the speakers that came today. I think it was a really, really great presentation. And also special thanks to Nicoletta from CVA for organizing this event. On behalf of myself and I believe all the speakers tonight, I want to wish you all a very good evening and see you all very, very, very soon.
And in 2 months, see you in 2 months for Marketa's event. And
yes.
It was great.
Looking forward to it.
Thank you so much.
You can make a better cliffhanger. Oh, guys, thanks a lot. Bye-bye.